The opinions expressed in this program are not those of CISA 7 or Time Warner Cable.
What's your tomorrow?
Roll call, Sandy? Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
All 7 board members are present. We're joined at the table by Clarissa Skoletsky from East High School as part of the Intercity Student Council, and the Intercity Student Council President, who is Priyanka Nirvani from Prevo. Also joined at the table by Dr. Langenfeld to my left and Sandy Heller, the board secretary. All right, now we'll move on to the minutes. I have minutes from July 22nd, regular board meeting, special board meetings, July 29th, August 5th, August 12th, special board meetings, closed sessions, July 22nd, July 29th, and August 5th. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes have been approved. We have no communications to place on file this month. And next is our building focus updates, which will be facilitated by Mike Blecka.
Thank you, Brenda. We're going to be joined at the table by Mark Smith and Lisa Boehm. And we're going to be talking about, they're going to give us an overview of our district school improvement planning process and the use of the Industar tool. And what we're going to do, we're going to start out with what you have, your report in Neptune, and then when we go through that, we're going to switch over to the PowerPoint that was emailed to you this morning. So Mark and Lisa, go ahead. And then also joined at the table by Stephen Miller.
Thank you. Just as a matter of context and setting, we were to you not so long ago. We gave you an update, I believe it was in end of May, giving you an update in terms of the professional learning that principals participated in last year relative to school improvement planning and our partnership with Dr. Judy Sargent at CISA 7, and bridging that gap from the way that we've conducted the school improvement planning sessions, and then ultimately how we're going to move forward this year as it relates to the role of the principal and certainly the role of the leadership teams and the teachers. Really that was before us because of the work that the Board of Education did relative to the strategic direction, which really provides us a very clear and consistent focus. So we provided a bit of that background previously, and today we're just going to anchor you again into the school improvement process, the work that we've done over the summer in preparation for the school year, and then also to give you an update around the role that Industar, a web-based tool, will play in the school improvement process. Last month, I believe it was, you heard a report from Lisa around focus schools and the role that Industar plays with those teams, so we wanted to bring that forth with you as well. School improvement has changed for us, and we have a clear focus on a continuous process. We're really trying to re-image the role that the leadership team plays and the role of the building principal. We want to move away from a one-time check-in to a continuous evolving process in which both the principal and the leadership team takes ownership in the work, takes ownership in the data, takes ownership in the task or the action steps, which really aid in school improvement. And we've been afforded that opportunity because of the board's strategic direction. So when you think about the strategic direction, and Stephen can pull up the PowerPoint here, when you think of the board's strategic direction, the 5 strategic directions have been really operationally defined for us at the building level. And that's afforded us the opportunity to really call out some very specific focus areas. So our presentation today is going to walk you through the new information and then really focus around IndiStar, and Lisa will present that. So if you could go to the next slide, Stephen, please. So just to really streamline the board's work in terms of the strategic directions, allowed the school improvement designing team, the district level administrators, and then also the building level administrators to identify some very key areas to work on and to focus on. So the strategic directions then really evolved into the creation of the vision cards, and embedded within the vision cards are measures. So one of those strategic directions, and we'll share an example later on as well, one of the measures is around high quality or best practices. That's strategic direction C. Embedded in that, we felt, and research suggests that high quality learning targets will aid us in improving high quality instruction. So that would be an example of a measure. Also to fit in the context, we have a series of meetings that have been set up from when the teams met in June, and we've reviewed, I know Lisa and I and Terry have been working with leadership teams and checking in with them in the summer and getting ready for their kickoff days to make sure that they're supported as well. And one of the things that we continue to hear is that this allows us to really focus on what matters most, and it's very appreciative from the schools and the leadership teams. So with that said, Stephen, if you could slide to the next one, we'll walk you through a tool that really aids us in that school improvement process and really serves as a focus on continuous and transformational practices, and that's IndiStar.
What you're seeing in this slide is the main page in IndiStar. And just for a little bit more background, we talked a couple of weeks ago about how the focus and priority schools were using IndiStar in their school improvement efforts. There are indicators that are assessed within IndiStar, and you'll see the top rectangle there says assess, and that is how the teams begin, is by assessing the indicators that we've identified for them. If you are in a focus school or a priority school, you have to assess and plan 35 indicators in a year, and IndiStar really drives your school improvement planning process. For the rest of the schools in the district, even the other Title I schools, we are only assessing and planning 5 indicators. So I wanted to point that out to you because for all of those other schools, IndiStar is not driving the school improvement process. IndiStar is a tool that we are using as a district to help sustain and monitor our school improvement efforts. It's really the strategic directions and the vision card measures that are driving our process. That's at the heart of everything that we're doing. And the way that we became aware of IndiStar was working with the focus and priority schools, but we wouldn't have gone this route if we didn't think it was such a good fit. So as Mark mentioned, it is an internet-based tool, and it's actually now where we are storing our school improvement plan. It is a place where board members could go to look at the school improvement plan, teachers could go to look at the school improvement plan, but the actual users of IndiStar are the building principal and the leadership team. That's where the plan is created. For others, it's really a read only. And to really be able to understand what's in IndiStar, you wouldn't just give a teacher in a school a login or a parent a login and say, go in and look in IndiStar and see our school improvement plan. You would really need to be walked through what is in IndiStar. Really the building leadership teams will be rolling out to the teachers in the school what the school improvement plan is. And I'll get into some ways a little bit later in this presentation that they can do this. One of the other features of IndiStar that we really liked was it has a database of very strategic in making sure that they were aligned with those three big chunks of what is necessary in order to really move school improvement. And that was the high quality instruction, the balanced assessment, and the collaboration or that work around PLC. So we have indicators connected to all of those. This first page that you see when you go into IndiStar, again, is where they start. So they click on that assess tab and they go in and they assess their first indicator. And what I mean by that is they read the research on that indicator. They have a protocol they follow in terms of how do we know where we as a school are with this indicator. And then once they've gone through that process, then they go on to the Create tab, and they actually, as a team, sit down and create a plan of, here's where we are now, how are we going to get to where we need to be? And then the next tab is the Monitor tab. As Mark said, this is a continuous process. So they are able to then, once they create their plan and assign tasks to people in order to get that plan accomplished, they're able to go into that Monitor tab and see how that is transpiring. So they will assign certain tasks to individuals on that school improvement team to make sure that the things that need to happen by a certain date. And there are processes built in within IndiStar that if Mark was assigned a task by September 30th, he is going to have emails generated by IndiStar to remind him that he's assigned the task, and he will report back on the task. So it's a very, it doesn't let anyone drop the ball. It keeps the whole team moving, and as certain tasks are accomplished, then you can go in and create new tasks to take those
Lisa, can I
next
interrupt you
steps.
for a second? Can teams from other schools access each other's IndiStar?
Yes, as a read only, you would be able to do
Because
that,
I would think
yes.
this would be a good way of sharing ideas and best practices. You know, if you're at Beaumont, you might wanna know what Chapel is doing, or if you're at Southwest, you may wanna know what West is doing, cause, you know, it's good to share ideas, obviously.
Yeah, Lisa and I have been going back and forth in terms of our meetings with the buildings and what have we learned, and sharing. You know, I was at Franklin today, and then I went to Washington, so I was able to share with Washington what I learned from Franklin, and then also how do we use that information. Much like we're asking the teachers and the leadership teams, how are we using that information to inform our professional learning for the principals? So that's really trying to duplicate that same process for our leaders in the buildings, because they certainly need that as well.
So as a district now with a common understanding about what school improvement is, within IndiStar, we know that when we start with assessing, we're really looking at a needs assessment that we've done as a school. So we're looking at where we are in relation to where we need to be on those vision cards. And then we're creating a plan of next steps. So we do have that continuous cycle. Can we go to the next slide, Stephen? Thank you. These are the vision card measures. So the vision card measures are along the left-hand side, and those first two are around the daily posting of high-quality learning targets in all classrooms, and then student understanding of those learning targets. So I talked before about having it in the 3 chunks. That's that high-quality instruction chunk. So everyone in the district is focused on making sure that that happens this year and has a plan for making it happen. The third one down is using and analyzing learning assessments to refine instruction. And we have an indicator or 2 indicators that are associated with that, so that we know that both classroom teachers and those instructional teams, as well as the building leadership team, have a handle on using assessments to drive instruction and plan instruction. And then the fourth vision card measure is on the PLCs, and making sure that we are using the data to plan what happens next in the building around professional learning. That the leadership team is looking at that school performance data and even some perceptual data from parents, from teachers, to determine what the next steps are at that school level. I would say that as I've been meeting with the school teams so far, part that really needs to be teased out and talked through is when we're going through and planning these, what really belongs with the high quality instruction and the learning targets, what pieces are really specific around the assessment and what is specific around the professional learning communities, and not having them kind of mixed up, because there is some overlap. In the schools, we've been doing a lot of sharing between the schools as we've been teasing those things out, and it's making more and more sense to people, and the feedback we've been getting is they really feel good about the direction that they're moving in, and they have that now all organized in IndaStar, and if they forget, they can go back and look and refresh their memory on exactly how are we going to get there. So I think that part's been really powerful. When a team goes in to assess an indicator, the first thing that they do is we have a protocol for them to follow. How do you assess an indicator? So it doesn't mean one thing at one school and another thing at another school. And in that protocol, the first thing they do is they go in and they reference WISE Ways, which is that research base that's right within IndaStar. So they read about the evidence, the research-based evidence, and what it looks like. And then they agree as a team. They actually go through the steps of which pieces of this do we have in place, and they have to agree on a level of implementation that they have. Is it partially implemented? Is it not implemented at all? Is it fully implemented? And then they also give it an opportunity score in terms of, at our school, how difficult will this be to implement? Okay, so once they have assessed it using the protocol, then there's another protocol that they use to create their plan. So they describe what does it currently look like in our school. If there are certain tasks that need to be done, they assign them to a certain person on the team. And then they talk about, at our school, what will this indicator look like when it's fully implemented, so that they have that vision. Some of these, it might take a year to get to, some might take longer. It depends on the school and where they currently are. And then they have all sorts of incremental steps that they take to get there. As I said before, they assign it a date and they assign it a person. These protocols, what we did at the school improvement retreat on the front end was we actually did a fishbowl where a group of us posed as a school improvement team, and we went through both that assess protocol and that create protocol so that the principals could see what should this conversation sound like, and would the steps be that we would go through in order to assess and plan the indicators.
So as a matter of reference, all schools have this completed. So they've gone through the assessing, they've gone through the task creations, and now we're going through and checking in, and there's still refinement going on, but in terms of their readiness to move to staff, they're already messaging and creating that 30-second elevator speech of how does it all fit together, and getting ready for the back-to-school days and the first professional learning day.
Mark, typically, who would be on a school's team?
So one of the challenges certainly is how do you get a representative group of your school, certainly to represent all the different areas, and do it within a group dynamic that is still action oriented. So to have 30 people isn't as productive as a group of 8 to 10. But the challenge is looking at, are you meeting the needs of your building? So if you have a rather large English language learners population, are you including a member of the ELL department, bilingual, special education, student services, core areas? So that's part of the challenge that building principals are posed with. But that's how we would look at the makeup of that group.
And I'm going to ask a question that I'm sure Celestine would ask, so, is that, how does this get to the parents?
Well, yes.
Let us finish and then we'll address
Okay,
that. Yeah.
all right,
Okay.
good.
Yep.
All right. I get to cover one slide with you.
But it's probably a
And
good one,
which
though,
slide
right?
is it,
It's-
Stephen? Is it
Yeah.
up there? We'll
I know
mark
it's gonna come as a
it.
shock, but it has to do with data.
Okay.
Oh,
So,
the one before.
One of the activities that we walked our principals through was a look at vision card B, because it is important for us to look at our inputs and processes, but we also have to look at how we benchmark against ourselves down a specific number. So for instance, if they were at 20% of students advanced and proficient in reading, they would put like a 2.2 or a 2.3. And then they would put a goal for where they wanted to go.
So that's moving their level from level 2 up to level 3.
And then they were able to upload this into their Industar program through the use of what Industar calls a file cabinet. It's basically just that, like a Dropbox kind of utility.
So it's not an actual file cabinet.
It's not a physical
Not a
file
virtual.
cabinet, but the picture is a file cabinet.
Okay.
And so all of the teams have that at their disposal. They can reference that again as they're going throughout the year and looking at their school improvement plans.
So in our school improvement plans in the past, the Title I school improvement plans looked a little bit different than the non-Title I school improvement plans, but this would have been the portion of the plan that would serve as your goals. So we had all of the teams highlight the Vision Card B measures, the outcome measures, as well as the measures around balanced assessment, high quality learning targets, and the professional learning communities. Those are actually serving as their goals. Okay. Yeah. So this is actually our final slide, and this just references how in Industar you are able to run a variety of reports that help you monitor and track that school improvement process. When you first plan the indicators and you don't have a lot of indicators planned and assessed, those reports aren't as robust, but the one that we've found the most useful at this point is called a comprehensive plan report, and that is an excellent way for school improvement teams to be able to share their school improvement plan with the rest of the staff. It lists each indicator that's assessed and planned. It tells the implementation, the current level of implementation. It tells you what the team said was the opportunity score, and what it currently looks like in the building, what it will look like when it's fully implemented, and then what the tasks are that are planned to this point. And so each indicator is listed there. So really, in a nutshell, they can get that whole plan in one report. So that's been very helpful. In terms of sharing with parents, Title I schools every year, at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, have a school-wide meeting that all parents are invited to, that they have very good turnout for because they have other things happening at the gathering. But they share with the parents what the goals are at the beginning of the year, and then at the end of the year, they share out with parents, how did we do on these goals? So I am assuming that the non-Title I schools will begin a similar process, but I don't know that we've teased that out completely.
Looking at me on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. I think part of, and this transitions well into setting you all up for the monthly building monitoring reports that are coming. Part of our quite honestly, our challenges is how do you focus and how do you keep it manageable? There are, as Lisa communicated earlier, 101 indicators in Industar. And one of those indicators and one of the maximum gain strategies that we know impact school improvement planning is parent engagement. So in terms of priority, that certainly is a priority for us. Although we didn't call it out as a focus for initially, it is certainly something as we talk to leadership teams, how do you get parents involved? How do you communicate? How do you break down some of those barriers? As we provide monthly building monitoring reports to the Board of Education, I believe that that's going to be something that you hear from insight statements, that schools are going to start to glean that of how can we get parents into that. And that then keeps that momentum moving in terms of then it should be a task. So how do we assess that? How do we action plan accordingly? And you'll see some differentiated approaches, I believe, which is then another opportunity for us to learn from each other and move forward as a district. So I think we've probably provided you more than you could take and process in one session. But again, we wanted to give you enough context and enough understanding of Industar. The next report we will provide another kind of framing and focusing so that in October, you're ready for the first building monitoring report. So I'll be back in September to frame and focus again around the organization of the reports, the structure, who you will see, how it will be presented, setting those schools up so that they can take off in October for your first actual building monitoring report.
Okay, questions from the board? Celestine?
Thank you. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna go back to the document in Neptune and then go forward into the IndiStar. So I just wanna back up into, you don't have to go to it. I just wanna back up into sort of, defining some terms and just understanding where this all is. And the first place I wanna start is, what is a highly effective school?
So in terms of the research-based piece, so
Give me
IndiStar
3
defines
sentences.
these
What is-
indicators within highly effective schools.
What is it? Right.
Yep. Well, I think and Lisa certainly has a bit more experience than I would on this. I think one of the things that we see in IndiStar is that there's a wide variety of indicators, and their explanation is they're research-based indicators. So, you know, you look at somebody like Robert Marzano's research and his best practices in school improvement planning. They pull from those sources and those authors. In terms of if they have a profile for a highly effective school, I don't know that right now. Have you come across any of that?
Okay. I was just gonna say, you can utilize the Wise Ways documents. Those point out the best practices in each of the indicator areas. Obviously, if, you know, like you were a super school, you would be really high in all of the indicators, but we know that's not where we're at right now. We're starting where we're at. Each of those indicators has its own set of research-based best practices, and those are the things that we ask our schools to look into and emulate as we move forward.
I think when people think about highly effective schools, they
Mhm.
think a lot about test scores.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also say that we have to strike a balance. And one of the things that we talked about at the school improvement retreat was that every student deserves the opportunity to develop as an intelligent, curious, creative, and caring human being.
Mm-hmm.
It's about more than test scores, and we can't lose the student in there and the reason that we all get out of bed every morning and come to do this work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's creating a balance between those two and not losing sight of the student. But I do believe that when it comes down to it, when they define a highly effective school, they are looking at test scores.
I think as we move along in this process, I think we probably need to have 3 sentences which define what a highly effective school is, if that's what we're working toward.
Yeah.
And I understand that we are all learning.
The staffs may not know that.
I
They may-
totally
they may ask
understand
the
that.
same question, and parents.
We
and,
need
yeah.
to know
Yeah.
what that is. But I appreciate all of your answers. Like I said, as we work toward this, as we have to get down to 3 sentences.
I
Go
think
ahead,
though, Celestine, that
Lisa.
we're always coming back to, IndiStar is based on the indicators of highly effective schools,
Mhm.
but we have to keep reminding ourselves that IndiStar isn't what's driving our school improvement process.
Right.
It's the strategic directions,
Right.
and what we've defined in that document,
Right.
I think really gets at what we're going for.
Right.
So we always are continuously coming back to the strategic directions.
Right, which is kind of what you had said.
Yeah.
Right, no, I totally get that. And I agree with you that we want to make sure that as we communicate this and we understand this is not just about test scores. Okay, then, my other question in the Neptune document is about, okay.
Where are you, Celestine? Any particular
Oh,
place
yeah,
there?
I'm on page 2,
Okay.
where it says vision card beat outcome goals.
Okay.
I'm having difficulty understanding something conceptually. Okay. Where we had the data retreat before, and you had spent a paragraph talking about the data retreat and, how it was not quite getting where we needed to go. But it seems like we're using some of the same types of data to analyze, to do the school improvement plan process. So I'm having difficulty conceptually understanding, well, if you're basically using the same eggs in the basket, how are you going to get a cake instead of just an omelet?
I don't think at all of the schools were using the same eggs in the basket. I
Okay.
think we've added, in the Title I schools, I would say that we've had a more comprehensive approach to school improvement. And we've used some perceptual data and other data that schools haven't used and actually have had a schedule throughout the school year of how we collect and analyze that data. I would say the biggest change is that we're moving on beyond naming our goal or naming our problem or naming our gap and actually have a synchronized effort now
Okay.
to plan. And that's where I believe Mark and I came together and did a lot of planning, and the approach in the Title I schools has changed because of this, and the approach in the non-Title I schools has changed because we've been able to use the work that you've done with the district vision card measures and those strategic directions to unite everybody and have a focus.
Mhm.
And I think that's the difference. We've actually spent more time on planning.
And I was just gonna say, from my lens, we used to have a data retreat, and as Mark talked about, it was like a once-a-year event.
Mhm.
You got together to either celebrate or bemoan your success or
Mhm.
failure on your goals. This year was a much different atmosphere and a much different climate. We certainly did spend some time looking at our outcomes, but we spent a great deal more time talking about our processes and inputs and developing our goals around those. Because we know if we do these things right, we're going to move the outcomes in those.
Okay.
We know that. And so those are some of the eggs we've always had in our basket,
Mhm.
but now we've added some eggs that I really think are going to help us move all of our schools and our district.
I think from a visual perspective, for me as a former middle school principal, school improvement planning happened maybe in March, but most likely between June and August. And really what we've done is we've flipped that. And school improvement planning happens all year round, so that we are analyzing data throughout the year. We're now, instead of just treating that as a data retreat, we're treating that as an action planning oriented, focused, professional learning support planning session, and then we're ready to kick off the year. And I think principals appreciate that, and my hope is that our messaging and our communication will be understood from a teaching standpoint, that it now makes sense, it's manageable, I get it, so.
Okay. Now to go to the PowerPoint, one more thing. One more little thing. I know.
It's really for Connie Mike's question on your behalf.
So let me see, on page, let's see, on the PowerPoint, where it says vision card and IndiStar alignment, perhaps it is just a mistake, but for the IndiStar indicators for C2, the student understanding of learning targets, how can it be measured by what teachers do?
Right, so in IndiStar, there wasn't always an indicator that exactly matched up with our vision card measures. So we
Oh.
did not let that stop us.
Okay.
So that's why it's the same indicator for both C1 and C2.
Mhm.
But on those, we went back to the measure to really guide our work. So some of the things that the teams are doing around student understanding of learning targets
Mhm.
is the leadership team is developing a walkthrough form for administration to use,
Mhm.
where they'll look for the posting of the high quality learning targets, but then they'll also ask one or two students in the classroom to tell them what the high quality learning target is for the day.
Mhm.
And then they'll report that back to the leadership team maybe on a monthly basis.
Mhm.
This month I walked through 200 classrooms, and here's the percentage of time high quality learning targets were posted, and here's the percentage that I could ask a student in the classroom and they could tell me what it was.
Okay.
And hopefully in January it's a higher percentage than October and so
Okay,
on.
that makes sense. All right.
Okay,
There you go.
Chris, go ahead.
Guess I haven't missed anything.
Thank you. You've alluded to it, I believe, but just if you help me understand again what you've done, what you're doing, what you will do to help staff buy into this, and is it replacing something? Because I know there's a tendency for staff to think, you're just always piling more on. What are you doing to get around that? And again, hopefully this is replacing something that is more helpful.
I think the first thing is Industar as a tool is really directly for the leadership team. So we don't, we are not messaging that Industar is something that every teacher will access, use on a daily basis, or even view. It really becomes a tool that the leadership team will use and help them focus their work. What we hope to see go away is really the lack of clarity, the confusion around the work that needs to be tackled. I think that as a principal and a teacher, I think one of the things that we often thought about is what is research based, but what can I do to really make a difference for my students? And I believe the teachers will appreciate that, and that will aid in their daily work, not become something that's extra. But to that end also, it's about how do we work with our leaders in the district around messaging, and part of our administrative retreat was around the understanding of the district strategic direction, and then also the communication. So as a leadership team, how do you communicate what you're going to work on for all teachers, all students, and all community groups to really participate in the buy-in? And that'll be evolving. We'll continually have to look at that and make sure that we're focused. And I think that's the opportunity that's before us.
Well, one of the points you may have said there is that the point is people have to see that it's helpful.
Yeah.
If they don't see it's helpful, it's going to go by the wayside.
If I could just chime in, when I was a member of the BLT, I thought it was pretty progressive. We saved our notes onto a file on the shared drive from our meetings, and then we advanced to actually saving them as Google documents and sharing those out. With Industar, you can actually keep your notes from your meetings directly in the Industar program itself. So my view of Industar is sort of like a project management tool for school improvement. And we have had to tweak it a little bit to make it work for us, but we've been able to do that. And this should be relatively transparent for the regular classroom teachers and other staff, other than the fact that it will allow the leadership team to keep those goals in front of not only themselves, but the entire faculty in an easier fashion.
Stephen, if
thing,
you could
if I may.
clarify BLT for our viewing
Oh,
audience. That
building
would sound
leadership
good.
team.
I knew that,
Not the same.
Thank you.
as
Yeah.
opposed to the sandwich, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Always delicious with a little mayo.
Chris, did you have another point?
Personally comment, you said there are 101 indicators?
Yes.
Now, some of you sitting at this board table, and Mrs. Marshall over there may remember under Superintendent Neerad, there was a strategic plan, I believe, with all these goals. And quite frankly, after less than a year, it was sitting on a shelf, and most people in the buildings weren't paying attention to it because there were just too many. So my comment's somewhat of admonishment. I would hope this 101 isn't too many for people to try to get their hands around.
What
But
they're
they're
finding
not-
with the focus schools is many of those indicators, they can say are already fully implemented because they are doing some of the things that the indicators of highly effective schools
Michelle?
spell out.
One of the things that, as we look to what's the difference between the data retreats and what we're doing, it really focuses around this continuous monitoring of student progress. And one of the things that Celestine, when you asked what a highly effective school looks like or what that means, I go right to our vision and what you've laid out as the vision. That really defines what that looks like in my head, where you talk about a comprehensive, responsive, and relevant academic and co-curricular program that's reflective of our core mission and vision. You've laid it out. Data-informed and results-driven practices of accountability and continuous improvement, engaged and inspired learners. There are numbers of things out there where people have defined what highly successful schools look like. Community partnerships, families empowered. You did this already. I think that's what it looks like. So I would say it's already laid out and very clear to me, so, and so I think that that's very helpful.
And I believe that was actually part of our discussion as we were writing this, where we were trying to clarify
What that looks
what
like.
that looked like.
So, you know, having a collaborative staff that perseveres so all students will reach their full potentials. Equity, and access, it's there in my head. And I'm thinking that it's already defined for us. I would hope you like what.
Well, we
'cause
did.
I think it's really excellent. And I don't think it could be said any more clearer. So.
Anything else? Brenda?
I'm not entirely clear what the fact that InduStar drives a school improvement plan, what that means compared to the rest of the schools that just have 5 indicators. And then my other question is, do the focus schools also have these 5 indicators? Are they part of the 35 or whatever you said? I mean, I guess I'm curious how you're melding, because I assume that InduStar is a required component of being a focus school. I wasn't here for that meeting, so I have to apologize for that. But then how are we melding that with making sure that those schools also are following, vision cards in the strategic direction?
The number of indicators per year is dictated by DPI. The focus on the priority schools, they're a 4-year cohort, and we are in year 2. So they've divided those indicators out over the first 3 years. They won't have 35, they'll have a little fewer the 3rd year. But they don't dictate to us which indicators we do, which year. So we were able to have the focus in the priority schools, or the focus schools do the same indicators, those 5 as part of their school improvement planning. But InduStar doesn't completely run the process, but it's a much bigger part of the process for those focus schools because it is required.
And because they have so many,
And because they
to
have so
follow?
many, it does look different, but they had done so much work on the front end over the course of the school year. They really were the leaders in that process. Other schools looked to them because they were really expert at using InduStar, and they had used the protocols that we had developed, and really had it humming. So it wasn't a problem for them, and yes, they are aligned to the district vision cards.
And then, I assume long term, we'll be adding, each year we'll add more indicators? Is that kind of the
Yeah.
5-year plan out from here?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we mentioned previously is that there's a school improvement planning design team. So what I believe we need to do is we need to broaden the scope of that team to include some teacher leaders and to look at that over an extended period of time. So how much additionally can you take on?
Right.
How does it align to what we've established earlier? So we've very clearly identified a focus on daily posting of high-quality learning targets, student understanding, because without student understanding of those high-quality learning targets, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense just to put something on the board. And then ultimately, how do you use that information to refine or inform your instruction? So what very much strategically and from a management standpoint makes sense to come next? And then our goal ultimately is to be at vision in the strategic directions that the board has called out. When that happens and how do we get to that point is really that art of how do we continue to monitor and build the capacity for our buildings.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Michelle?
As we think about keeping parents informed about multiple measures, you're absolutely spot on when you speak to the fact that there are other things to measure in the success of a school, and when you look at what the vision the board has set out, it's very clear. Have we given any thought to having this discussion with parents at parent advisory meetings to talk about this process of what we're engaging in around things like InduStar, but really more importantly, talking about what we measure and how it's being measured and why the autopsy is nice, and you start out in the fall and we say here, and then at the end we report out to parents at the end of the year. Well, they can't help in between. It's like the state test. It's over before you can even fix anything. But my sense is that maybe we need to consider how we engage our parents in conversation around continuous improvement in our schools. And that's not necessarily a conversation a lot of schools have had before. And I'm not even talking about governance. I'm talking about what does that mean? You know, if I'm in corporate America, I might have some sense about what that means. But in my school, what does it mean to me and what does it mean for my child? And how will it advance that student? So if I see a test score that doesn't make sense to me, knowing what I know, am I understanding really accurately that what I understand really reflects what my children and my school can do? Or does that one data point that somebody put in a state test at one time tell me? So how do we have that conversation around continuous improvement with our families so they know it isn't just one data point at the end of it all?
Yep. Yep. And that's really that enrichment opportunity at the building level. I think it's a perfect messaging for our principals as they walked away trying to create that communication platform for their stakeholders. They're well prepared for that. We have monthly parent network meetings that the buildings can have and can share those things. So I would imagine that would be quite easy to share out.
Well, but you know, I mean, principals communicate to parents in an abstract way.
Yep.
Not in a way that's especially particular to their child, which is why parents really care in the first place. So I mean, I think it also at some point becomes incumbent. I don't want to put too much on the teachers, but it really is the teacher who has to communicate what that looks like, especially in that class for that grade level for that particular child. I mean, I think, and you know, let's all remember the PTOs and the PTAs have a very small group of involved people.
Right.
I think your point is well taken, Celestine.
Yeah, and the parent-teacher conferences, right, exactly.
Leadership team meetings that I attended today, the teachers were talking about how does the transfer occur from it doesn't always have to be on the board, the daily posting of high quality learning target, but if it is on the board, how does that transfer from there ultimately to student, to parent, to home, so that the parents can create that check-in of what did you do in school today, what's your responsibility, and they're talking about is that in that student journal, do the kids write it down and then bring it home, and the parents know that you can check every day or this week we'll have these daily postings of high quality learning targets. So yeah.
Anything else? Great, thank you so much, and I think this is really a good lead-in to our monthly reports, and we look forward to hearing those every month. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that concludes our report.
All right, thanks, Mike. Next we'll move to the superintendent's update.
Start with the calendar. Today was an exciting day in case, and it's not on my formal list, but I'm gonna go there anyway. Middle school football started today.
That's right.
It was
That's awesome, buddy.
It's
Pedaling
quite
back.
the stir, so make sure you catch the media reports tonight. I hear they were visiting all of our kids. We had a large turnout and people are very excited. Also this week, we've got a lot of open houses going as we begin the new school year. We open our doors right after Labor Day. The district is closed September 2nd, but then on September 3rd, we welcome our students and families and begin again the 13-14 school year. On September 9th, we have a teaching and learning work session right here in the boardroom at 5:30, and the organizational support work session will follow immediately in the same space. And then on September 16th is our regular board meeting. So those two are back to back, I think, in the month of September. And then on September 18th, we have the CESA 7 meeting for board members focused on Wisconsin educator effectiveness. And that is, there's an address
That's at the
there.
Comfort Suite, so not at the CESA office.
Okay.
Right.
Okay,
That's
so
the 18th?
the board
Yes.
is
Wednesday
aware.
the 18th.
Wednesday the
18th,
18th.
yeah.
On the calendar.
Yeah.
So it's a busy, busy time. So that is
And
our
you need to
upcoming
let
calendar.
Sandy know if you're going, because she was registering us.
Yep.
September 18th.
We have a couple of discussion items too. We do have a couple of discussion items. Actually, it says scheduling a board retreat. I would like to schedule 2 retreats. I had staff come this morning and talk to me about the various programs that we're implementing and the schedules around supporting them. So we felt it was very important to look at our current programming in that light and bring that conversation forward. So that would be the second one, and I know Brenda, you and I talked about one retreat to set the board agenda, I believe. So 2 different focuses. So, in September, the Mondays we have open, the 23rd and 30th, I don't know if either of those work for you.
I'm looking right now. Because now, barring an injury,
I know, we're gonna play football.
it's
aren't we?
football again.
Okay.
So, you
But
said,
Mondays still are the best for people?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Oh.
Just depends. 23rd, I'm free after 6.
Why do we have back-to-back, if the 23rd
Because
is?
the second is
We
Labor
get the
Day.
9th and the 16th in September.
Okay.
The second is Labor Day, so we push that.
Okay.
we're gonna need to, for me, you all can go ahead, I'm gonna just have to choose one of those, because it means I won't see anything this September since we have the 9th and the 16th for board meetings, and then the 23rd and the
possibly
30th,
go.
so I can attend one of those, but not both.
Early October, Mark, would that work?
We're still gonna run into, how long does football last?
November.
Oh,
Yeah, see, Monday nights.
October.
What time does the game start?
When's the game
5?
end? So you're done at
5?
7.
You're done at 7.
So we could meet at 7.
We could afterwards, that would be
People
fine.
are up for that.
I think
Yep.
that's better than going into.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's.
I mean, I don't wanna hold everybody up, I just,
No, that's.
No, I
have to try
understand
to
that,
all
but I
be
think
there.
if we can get a time where we get
Why don't we
everybody
look
there.
at the 23rd at 7?
Okay.
I'll bring birthday cupcakes.
Is it your birthday?
Oh,
I'll sing.
bravo.
She laughs.
How long do you
Nice.
anticipate
I'll
it
sing
going?
too. You what?
How long do you anticipate it
Yours, the
going?
first one for
The
agenda?
board agenda.
Oh, that's that big thing that we did.
That's that
Yeah,
yearly,
yeah.
what we want
Oh,
reports
the-
on and things like that.
The color-coded thing we got
Well, that
last week,
was-
is that
that's
what we're
not-
talking about?
No.
No, we're talking about, remember when we did the
You'll take the
Teamworks
color
work?
code.
Oh, okay.
And we started looking at that, and then we
Yep.
decided to do mission and vision and strategic directions
Okay,
first.
all right.
So we're just getting back to that, so 2 hours.
So we can be done at 9,
Yeah.
just, you know,
We'll just be done at 9.
make certain that we're done at 9, we'll just have cutoff time, you know, starting late,
Well,
I think.
I asked a question because you said 4 hours. I don't feel like starting at 7.
Oh, right, yeah, no,
That's why
we'll
I'm
just
sa-
be
yeah,
done at
that's why if we
9.
say, if we
And if we
start
have
at
to
We'll be
schedule
dis-
another
be
one. we
disciplined.
do.
We'll be
Right.
disciplined and do it in 2 hours.
Exactly.
7
Can
o'clock
be
on
done.
the 23rd.
Yeah.
7 o'clock on the 23rd, and yes, Chris, it can be done.
Okay,
And then what
that's,
about the 30th?
I'm unavailable.
You're, okay, what about October 14th?
6 in the afternoon.
30th.
Oh, we have to go at 7 again.
Okay, wait a minute,
What'd you say, Chris?
That might be hard for me.
Yeah,
Don't
Mary
work on me,
can't-
I've got a crazy
Well, Mary
schedule.
can't come the 30th either, so how about October 14th? That's our next
14th.
free Monday.
Yeah, actually, that's,
Yeah, I can do that.
That's what?
what?
Spit it out.
Good.
Well, like I said.
We're
oh,
waiting for
Are you
South
available,
Steve.
Chris?
Right now I am, but like I said, I've got a crazy schedule.
Well, we can all get a better offer.
Right, I can only tell you right now.
But for now,
Yeah, well, that's true.
really.
I didn't think of it that way.
All right. Are you available on the 14th?
I'm just trying to,
Should we do 7 again then? Is
yeah,
that the-
no, I'll say, okay.
Or do you wanna try a different day? You said you're more flexible? this
I
time?
can do the 14th, and I can't do the last Monday ever.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you don't have any other days of
is
the
there
week?
anything
You're
during,
working all the other days, right? Like before, okay.
Okay, that's what, cause when you
That's
said.
what she was asking, yeah.
Okay, right, and I understood that, but when you said that, when Brenda asked if it was Mondays, and we
It
said.
depends on time of day.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right, so what's your decision?
On the 14th.
Well, we'll just schedule it for 7.
Just schedule it, yeah.
For 7?
Yeah.
If
I mean,
Celestine
can you,
can't come,
if you
can we
can't
do it
come,
for
should we
6?
schedule
I
earlier?
think you should schedule it for 5, and then
5.
I'll
I'm
just
not
have to
available till
decide.
6.
Okay,
Oh,
so
you're
You're
not
not
6.
available till
6?
6 is good then.
Okay.
Oh, then I might be able to see part of it.
Yeah,
I'm not
do
sure if it's
that.
away or not, that's the thing, it doesn't
Si-
say.
So this, what is the,
There's no
what
schedule.
is the
It
month
This
of
is,
but it
this
14?
is,
doesn't say
this is
they're all
to
the same,
focus on
West
and look
versus
at our
Preble. See-
various programs that we're working to implement.
See, it doesn't say
And
whether or
Mark
not
and the
it's.
team would like to do
Oh,
a.
New-
see, look
new
at that, that's JV
programming, is that
parents.
what we're-
Well, we
Nice.
are, it's the existing
Right,
programs that
okay.
we're evaluating and looking at
See,
how
it's
it
always
fits
West
with
versus,
times and
it doesn't
schedules
say
and
that.
all.
It still
Okay.
catch the
Are we
time.
thinking
Okay, so
6 to
6
8?
o'clock,
They're all the
6
same.
o'clock, October 14th.
6 o'clock. We went from 7 to 5 to 6.
We did, and now we're at 6.
All right, we're at 6.
That's-
We got
yeah,
it.
It's our final offer.
That's our final offer.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay?
You got it.
So
We do
Sandy,
that in
you'll
5
send
minutes? I
something
think
out
we
then?
might have barely.
We're close.
All right.
All right.
The other thing I just have on there, I just wanted to give you a very brief update on Cradle to Career, as we've talked a little bit about that whole piece around rallying around the whole child. And when you think about a shared vision and mission and direction, we've been having conversations, and Brenda and I have been probably more involved sitting at this table, but we've also had Mark Smith and Stan Kogas meeting with groups that represent the Greater Green Bay Community Foundation, United Way, and the Chamber of Commerce, and other community members to talk about what that might look like. And there's actually a summit planned on September 16th that people are receiving invitations to, and I think we have, I know Brenda will be there, and I know that I believe Celestine, you were invited as well, so that we will have good representation to talk about the vision of how we, as a county, Brown County, leverage and maximize our resources to support children from cradle to career. So we've had some, I think, very robust conversations within these planning pieces to talk about vision, mission, and what those metrics would look like. And I think the next step now is to determine who that convener would be on point, and that whole process will take place on September. There's a small group that will be interviewing potential places to incubate. I think the piece that people need to know is that the intention is that whoever becomes the convener now is not going to be doing all the work, paying all the money to move the initiative forward, but rather would be like what I would perceive as the incubator to get this thing moving, and then I see it as moving independently, but that's my own takeaway, and I don't know if Brenda would agree with that or not, or where you're at with that, so.
Moving independently of the school district.
Independently, well, I think in partnership, but moving independently of whoever the convener might be on
Oh,
point. You
oh.
know, if that makes sense. Somebody has to incubate it, frame it, and provide the resource to support it, the initiative. And then it would always be in partnership with a leadership team that would, we would have to be at the table.
Yeah,
or
sure.
We couldn't, it wouldn't work for Brown County because we employ large numbers of people and have 21,000 kids, so involved in the effort. So, I don't know. I think it's exciting. I think that we're looking forward to the summit to kind of kick it off and get a better understanding of where the community's at. And then I think the whole community will hear a lot about where this is going after that day. I don't want to get out ahead of it, but I just want people to know it's buzzing out there and people have been invited to attend, so. And I think the next part are action items with human resources.
Okay. Motion?
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion, the first motion.
I move that the resignations as listed be approved.
Second.
Questions? Right, Sandy?
Aye.
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 Carried 7-0.
I move that the leaves of absence as listed be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Blackout?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Jeffries? Warren?
Aye.
Franz?
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
I move that the transfers as listed be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Franz?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
I move that the employment of staff as listed be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Warren?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Franz?
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
I move that the retirements as listed be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Wagner?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Franz?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
This concludes our report.
It does, it concludes my report. Thank you.
All right, next we'll move
Very
to the
fast.
Intercity Student Council report. I'll turn it over to Priyanka.
you. Well, as you all know, 2 weeks from tomorrow, we will be starting off school. So this week was kind of our getting back into school mode week for a lot of our extracurriculars and for a lot of our sports as well. Yesterday we had our first ICSE meeting over at Bay Beach, so everyone was kind of excited about that. We had a meeting and then we went on the Zip and Pippin, which got stuck. So
It was right at the
Did
end
you have
though,
to help?
so-
Would you get stuck on the top?
we did,
or-
luckily. We got stuck right on the bottom.
Oh.
Better. But today was the start of
Is it?
Today was the start of volleyball tryouts. Thursday and Friday are our first football games. Soccer is Wednesday, Thursday, and the first day of cross country was actually today. So all of our sports really kicking off this week.
I'm not sure about golf when that starts.
Yes. Preble has been at hard work at its musical this summer. This was actually the first year that we've had the auditions in the spring so that we could work on it during the summer and have a really strong musical come fall, winter area.
And what are they doing?
What show?
I couldn't tell you, but I will make sure to tell you on the next
Okay,
report.
that'd be great.
West was very excited about their summer acting program. This was the first summer that they got to do an acting program over the summer. It was a course. So for those students that might not have room for it in their schedule during the school year, they were very excited to be able to take this course during the summer. And East is preparing for their Fine Arts Institute opening this fall. A lot of our music theater kids are very excited about this as it's kind of a preparation for college. It'll get those kids ahead on their applications. Like this is a really cool thing for our schools to have. And also the most what we're most excited about at ICSE, as we discussed in our meeting last night, was their East High School had a school store opening for the entire Brown County for families in need of supplies for the school year, clothing, etc. And that actually served 3,000 people across Brown County. We were very excited about that. And not only is it the community that we're serving, but I think one of the most exciting things about the store was that it was kind of our classmates serving other classmates, which I think just speaks volumes about the whole Green Bay district, that our classmates are actually in there volunteering to give other classmates the resources they need to learn. And
Excuse me, can you amplify that a little bit? You said school store for the county. Is that for other high school students or all students?
all students.
That was
Okay.
the Back to
The Back
School
to
store
School.
sponsored by
Back to School.
Service League.
Service League.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it sounds like a lot of East kids were volunteering. there.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
great.
yeah, it
There
was
were a
great.
lot of students there and
That's-
staff, so.
You become personal, I've done that, Mike has done that.
And Mike was
For
there.
some
Yeah.
reason. You're personal shoppers.
Yeah.
It was pretty.
That's
It's a
the
lot
fun thing
easier
is
with the
shop.
boys than the girls, I can tell you.
Oh, I don't know. I watched him with two boys, but
And that concludes my report.
I have a question.
right.
So did I miss the schedule of the meetings for the ICSC? Did you set a schedule yet?
We did, yep.
Did I
No,
set-
For their
for
meetings,
us,
not
the
for.
board.
To meet with
Yes.
us.
Oh,
Yeah,
our
no.
quarterly meeting.
Yeah.
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 I approved it last night, so I think Ms. Grabarczyk was gonna email it to you today.
Okay,
Okay.
because, right, so the first meeting is when approximately?
October
Oh, yeah.
16th.
October 16th, 7 a.m. here, I assume.
And so when is your next meeting without us?
Our next meeting is September 8th.
Because I think it's important to get, I'm looking at Kim and Mark about the bus initiative to the ICSC. I don't know, so the bus initiative is for the students to get a little sticker if they participate in co-curriculars. They can ride the public buses after school for no charge.
That sounds great.
So, I don't know how to get that, because October 16th seems a little late for me.
It's
Yeah, that's right. So I don't know what, I'm catching on the fly here, I'm sorry, but what do you think we should do in terms of getting information for their next ICSC meeting on September 8th?
ADs.
Okay, okay.
ADs.
Very well, but I think, I would like the students to be able to create some buzz so that students
Yeah.
actually go and talk to coaches and ADs so they can get these stickers themselves. It needs to be, in my mind, a two-way street. So, okay, awesome, thank you.
And a lot of the problem with students not participating in extracurriculars is because of transportation, especially our underclassmen.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's great. Okay.
And thanks to Celestine for shepherding that.
Yep, she did.
Cool.
All right,
Very cool.
thank you. Next, we have our legislative liaison report. That'll be led by Mike Blecka.
Thank you, Brenda. A lot going on in the last week. Legislative updates, there's an attachment there that I'm not gonna go through. That was a report that Joe Quick, one of our WHP lobbyists, a report that he gave at the Educator Effectiveness Conference in Green Bay last week. So I'm not gonna go through that. It's a good update for everybody to have, kind of looking at what's in the budget as far as public education and what's ahead. There's a couple other issues that I want to spend more time on. Number one was the vouchers. The Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction last week announced the names of the 25 schools that received the most eligible applications during what is called the Parental Choice Program, which I call the voucher program. The Green Bay area has, not surprisingly, 4 schools, and the Grace system had divided up into Grace South, North, and East in order to get more applications in. So the 3 Grace units, in addition to Notre Dame Academy, are among the 25 school systems that had the most students. Parents and guardians submitted applications for 2,415 students to attend the 48 schools that indicated their intent to participate. The top 25 schools, including the 4 in our area, had 2,069 eligible students apply to be in the program. Now, if you recall, that doesn't mean all those students that get in. The first year there would be 500 students statewide, second year 1,000 statewide, and no more than 1% for each school district. So the maximum for Green Bay would be like 210 students. The most interesting part is that now voucher program was billed as a choice program to help kids in what they called failing public schools attend private and religious schools. Of those in this application, 76% did not attend a Wisconsin public school last year. Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, that shows, and there was a good release that I have a copy of today from the School Administrators Alliance, and Wisconsin Association of School Boards is making similar comments. And this came from John Forrester, who is the lobbyist for the School Administrators Alliance. And I just want to read you some of what he's written here, because I think this is what we've all been saying, and the voucher people say, oh no, that's not true. According to John Forrester, it says, during the recently concluded 2013-15 state budget session, School Administrators Alliance and others, including WASB, argued that if lawmakers expanded private school vouchers in the budget, taxpayers across Wisconsin would be financing a new and growing entitlement program for private school children whose tuition is currently paid for by their parents. At the time, voucher proponents dismissed this assertion as alarmist. Yet with the Department of Public Instruction's release last week, of data suggesting that 76% of students applying are either currently enrolled in private schools or not in public schools, our assertion looks to be anything but alarmist. Clearly, the choice program is nothing more than a subsidy for current private school students.
They were interviewed, the Grace administrators were interviewed in the news, and they admitted that figure didn't surprise them at all because they targeted those people.
Sure.
They made certain that they.
So is what you're doing,
registered.
and
Applied.
John Forrester kind of projects this out. I mean, the ultimate objective of Voucher Advocates is a statewide system of private school vouchers for all children and what they've called a voucher in every backpack. If you have a voucher in every backpack, that amounts to $765 million. Voucher in every backpack.
Well,
So what is that, where does that money come from?
you had said that there were 2,100 students in this community who
There,
applied.
actually,
Applied,
DPI
right,
has
2,096.
DPI has broken down by school and the number of students. Grace East, 110 students. Grace South, 64 students. Grace West, 62 students. And Notre Dame Academy, 82 students.
Oh, so that's a very small.
Right. And then there's a breakdown. There's, I mean, you go Appleton, Beloit, Chippewa Falls,
That was
LaCrosse,
the state
Madison,
yard,
Manitowoc.
statewide.
And I think.
It's the
Oh,
total
I
for
see.
this.
That was
the
the
That
2006
that was
statewide.
the
I'm
state.
sorry,
Notre
okay.
Dame said 80, if I'm not.
82 for
80s.
Notre Dame.
No,
Oh,
no,
that.
80 from the Green Bay Public Schools.
Oh, that.
The
Grace public school students in the Grace system. So that could be De Pere, Ashwaubenon, Harvard, Swampville, Lansing.
So just the public schools that would feed into the Grace system, there were a total of 80.
So the reason why I asked that is because if 76% of the, we rambled off like 200, 300 some odd students?
76%, 1,566 students did not attend a Wisconsin public school last year. 67% were in a private school,
Right.
and then 9% were either not in school or in a homeschool. They were not in
Right.
a public school.
Because what I'm getting at is that 76% of students who would income qualify, so they would income qualify under the current voucher and also currently be in a private school, because you said 76% are all,
Right.
you know, that's a lot of kids whose families are, that seems odd to me. That's either a lot of kids who are already getting scholarships from the school, which would make sense,
Right.
given it's pretty low income,
Yep.
right? Or families who are really struggling to pay, which doesn't make sense to
I
me.
would think most of those kids probably get scholarships.
Uh,
I wouldn't jump to that conclusion when it's 3.5 times the poverty rate as part of your criteria.
no,
It's
no,
185%.
it's not, it's 185%.
It's 300% is now in Milwaukee and Racine. It originally was, the proposal for Green Bay and the other 8 school districts originally was at 300%. In the compromise that was reached, when they went down to 1%, they went to 185, which is for a family of 4, roughly like
43.
42,000. But those caps will undoubtedly be lifted.
Right.
Both
Right.
of the 1%, and the 185.
I think the piece that's interesting is the fact that there were, from public school students across the state of Wisconsin, 503 applicants total. Am I right in that?
503, yes, according to
Right,
DPI.
and I saw an interview with Senator Olson, who made that fact known and said, they're talking about raising caps and the clamoring, and there's this big outcry, and he said, the intention from where he sat was for students to have an opportunity who were attending public schools who needed a different option, a different choice. And so if that was the intent of the law, he thought the number that the legislature came up with for 500 was spot on, that there would be 500 slots for public schools. And had they not had the private schools, they'd have been pretty much able to fulfill all that had made the inquiry and applied from the public schools.
I guess I would say if public schools in Wisconsin are so terrible, you would think there would be more than 500 students that would apply.
Yes, I think someone did a calculation, and Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, it was .0004.
What is there, about 800,000, I think, public
It's
school
over
students?
800,000, and there was 500 in the state.
But that's been one of the arguments that a
Very
bunch of people
small
have had.
amount.
What are you guys worried about? There aren't that many that are gonna come over there.
Right.
But it's like a Trojan horse as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
Mike, let me ask you, do you know, and perhaps you don't, for the sake of argument, the 80 there for Notre Dame, and theoretically 3/4 of them are already going there, right?
mhm.
Will the vouchers go to first come, first serve who applied in that number, 80?
It's
Or
a
will they go
lottery.
to those who aren't there?
No,
It's a lottery. It's a lottery.
That
um,
makes sense.
State law requires Department of Public Instruction to conduct a random drawing of eligible student applications and allocate 10 seats to each of those 25 top schools. And then fill the remaining 250 seats randomly. The random selection of student applications will be conducted by computer next week.
You know, I mean, that doesn't even get at the family who is at 43,000 and actually paying to relieve that family versus the family who's at 42,000 getting a scholarship, which relieves the school. That doesn't even differentiate between those two.
And I think I'm hoping that we'll be able to determine who the 80 students are and where they're enrolling from, you know. How many have already perhaps made a decision and are may be in a Green Bay attendance area but haven't rolled out. Often people who have already choiced to one area may want a choice again if they have this opportunity. And we know that, you know, they said there were some out-of-state applicants, which were interesting. But we also know there's
wow.
you know, I mean, our surrounding areas also included. There's De Pere and West De Pere and
And
Howard
well, in
Suamico.
School
and-
Choice Wisconsin, Jim Bender is making the argument that because there were 2,400 applicants, this is a clamoring for people for vouchers, so that is a reason to lift the cap. Look at all of these students who want to attend, without mentioning that most of them already do, that they want to take part in this program, so that is a reason to lift the cap. Because we're not serving all of the students who want to be served in the voucher program.
I don't know if there's a way of doing it. If so, if we can do it, great. Those youngsters who apply with the vouchers who are new to that system there, well, or even ones that are there, who then don't last the year and come back to us. I mean, we've lost the money, but
We'll
they come
know.
back to us. And I think that'd be an interesting figure, if there's some way we could
Well, that's
trickle that
certainly
out.
what's happened in Milwaukee.
We should be able to watch that, can't we? Monitor that? If we have students who are in another system who take a
Yeah.
voucher and then come back to us, we should be able to track that. Yeah, but we'll know
We
how
will
many
be
that
able
will
to
be.
track them, though, I would assume.
By the way, I
would
did
think
get
so.
I had texted Brenda when I was on vacation. I did get a robocall at my house.
Wanted you to
Text her
apply for
about,
a voucher? or-
yep, you should apply for a voucher.
What
Andrew, did you get a
no.
robocall?
No, I only use my cell phone, so I wouldn't do it.
Oh, okay.
I think what's interesting also is if you look at the amount of marketing and the amount of robocalls and all of the investment and all of the marketing around and 80 public school students in our greater community, I think that sends a very important message. Because it wasn't well shared out.
So, we will continue to monitor that. The other,
Mike.
Oh,
Andrew?
sorry. So do we have the actual number of Green Bay area public school students that have applied?
No.
no.
And I don't know if that can be
I don't know
accessed
if
through
we-
open records.
I don't know if we don't know that.
I don't know if
There's
that's,
503 statewide.
it's the Department of Public
And
Instruction.
Father Dane says there's 80 from
This
Brown
area.
County, basically, but we don't know which school
So
districts
that,
are coming from.
yeah, I mean, there could be 5 or 6 different school districts that have
Correct.
Grace.
So we maybe.
Or even could be some from outside Brown County.
Well, it could be
Grace.
Denmark, it
Right.
could be.
Well, I mean, they
Shawano,
could,
Howard
in the Notre Dame, they get
Suawaco.
kids from
Could be Menominee.
Kewaunee County, Door County. So we
So
don't.
we might not even have more than 20 or 30 even in the pool, and not all will even
Right.
be chosen.
Right, right.
It would be interesting to know if there was, a group coming out of one school, for example. It would tell us something. I mean, I don't know if we'll be able to drill that data down, but that would be important as well. If there was, a sense that the school wasn't doing their support of children, but I would.
Well, we could certainly ask for it, couldn't we, of DPI and Notre
I-
Dame and Grace Academy, they can say no to us, but we can certainly ask for that
Yeah,
information.
and I know that Amanda's done some inquiries from the DPI, and we'll continue to pursue that, because I think it is important if we get a sense of that, so.
The other item I wanted to talk about under there is the private school accountability bill that we've been talking about all summer. The bill was drafted last week by Luther Olson, who is chair of the Senate Education Committee, and Steve Costell, who is chair of the Assembly Education Committee. I'm
Refresh
just
my
gonna
memory.
talk about
Wait.
this briefly. There is so much to that, pardon?
Okay, private school accountability, is that the whole report card part of
It's,
the?
well, it's the accountability, it's whole, because, you know, originally, private voucher schools, private and religious schools are supposed to be part of the report card process. They were taken out. This is an attempt to make voucher schools hold to at least some of the same accountability standards as public schools are. A couple things, I'll go over a couple highlights. If you want to read more about this, go to the WSB website. There are links to the accountability bill and then the highlights on there. Or if you get WSB's e-newsletter, there are links on there. And generally what I would like to do, I think we should take a position on the accountability bill. Certainly not tonight. What I would like to do is, I've talked to some people. I'd like board members in the next week or two to do some reading on their own. Call me or email me with some ideas. I want to talk to Michelle and her staff, because I'm sure you have some ideas on accountability measures. If you're looking at that, I'd like to put something together, a letter, and then share it with board members before the next meeting, but I'd like to see us adopt something at our September meeting so we can send it to legislators, because I think it's an important bill for us to take a position on.
I haven't drilled down in the bill. One of the critical things, and I know Brenda has said it publicly, and I'm sure others as well, is that the accountability piece around open records, open meetings, is that included?
No, it is not, and that was one of, that's, and
Is
I'm
it,
gonna
to me,
get there.
that's the key.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry,
Okay,
I'm stepping
no,
on your thunder here.
That's okay.
I'll back off.
No, there are a couple of key elements in the current bill. And by the way, Robin Voss and the governor have made kind of lukewarm statements. Well, we'll take a look at it. Shock of all shocks, Jim Bender doesn't like the bill. He thinks,
There was some double talk in the Journal Sentinel about that too,
Yeah.
I thought.
a couple of highlights in the bill. Key elements of the bill include examining student performance in reading and math and evaluate schools on both what schools know and how much their schools have actually taught them. Rating schools on a scale of 0 to 100, which is the current report card for the public schools. Providing consequences for both public and private schools receiving tax dollars. Depending on their type, schools underperforming for more than 3 years could face consequences, including significant restructuring, closure, loss of their charter, or removal from the voucher program. Voucher schools would be given 3 years to make improvements before they could be removed from the program.
Does this cover
Which shouldn't
Milwaukee,
include
Racine?
removing the
No,
students.
the This does not cover Milwaukee.
It's just for the new
This
ones.
is for the new ones.
Did that.
Now, I also got some information this afternoon. The legislative Democrats are expected to introduce their own accountability bill. And there are some provisions in here that I like and that I think we could incorporate. Their amendment covers and things that are not in the Castell-Olson bill. They would require licensure of teachers and administrators in voucher schools, background checks for teachers and administrators in voucher schools, same standards for determining student proficiency as public schools, and now this is really key, does not allow exclusion of those who opt out of testing when calculating proficiency rate. Because now what they do now when they're tested, they just tell those kids to stay home every day.
And parents can sign them out.
Yes. Graduation standards, written requirements for graduation for voucher schools. Regular board meetings, at least 12 per year by voucher school governing boards. And this says adherence to open records law, and I would add open meetings laws. My argument would be if you get public money, then you should be held the same standards in open meetings and open records as public
Is
schools are.
is that gonna inculcate a Supreme Court battle?
No, I think you just change the law. I mean, the open meetings and open records law are state law. The legislature can change state law. But anyhow, I mean, that would be an uphill fight, but I think that's something that we should take a position on. Application of laws governing seclusion and physical restraint of students in voucher schools. Procedures for expelling voucher school students that provide for a hearing and due process. An assessment of the reading readiness of students in early grades, K4 to second grade by voucher schools. So I think some of those provisions we could include in what we would like to see in a voucher.
Do any of those provisions include giving the money back? Because one of the things that was in that report that we went, that meeting at the library, you know, Mike was there, Chris was there, about, and one of the most startling things in that report from that entity, whose name escapes me.
Forward Institute.
Yes,
Forward Institute.
was that there was no accounting of the money, so if the tuition was $4,500 and they got a $6,800 voucher, first of all, where's the rest of the money? And then when the student leaves, so do you think that's, because that would be one thing I would like to see, if the student leaves.
Give the money back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you have to account for every penny that you use of public dollars, and if your tuition's $4,500, you should get $4,500.
Yeah, and I know the special ed voucher bill doesn't have a provision for that. And by the way, it looks like that bill will be coming back this fall as well. So like you say, you can find links to that.
Can you
in the
give us those
WSB
links?
It's on WSB.org.
Oh, okay.
And it's under their e-connection. They have a special section on there there's all sorts of links to that bill. Apparently the plans are for the Senate to take up that bill this fall. Scott Fitzgerald, the Senate Majority Leader, has already said he would take up the bill, and he said, we need this. And then the Assembly would take it up not until next spring. So that's the plans right now. But I think if we can take a position at our September meeting, we can get that letter out to not only our legislators, but I think the governor's office and other key legislators as well.
When do you want your feedback by?
I would think in the next in the next week or two, if you can take a look at that and send me some thoughts. I would like to, key is going to be not letting the letter get too long, like
Sure.
my last letter did. But there's a lot. I think we hit some key things. I mean, I think the key is getting at least some accountability, and I think some of what the the Democrats are proposing make a lot of sense?
I think
Especially
it-
the open meetings, open records?
Yeah, I think it's far easier when you're comparing apples to oranges and so forth. It's the transparency behind this whole thing. So if I am not subject to that, that's the concern I have. You could, just as Mr. Bender will speak to his concern about the Department of Public Instruction possibly not being forthcoming with student data and testing data accurately. So also I think is the concern as a taxpayer that many people have voiced, and I agree with, how would we know if everything is closed?
Right.
How will we really know? And you're setting yourself up to people not believing your data anyway if you're closed. So it would behoove, I think, any of the voucher schools to be transparent in all their forthcoming and the dollars. It would be a far easier way for the public to get their heads around it if we're paying our tax dollars. You know, my husband and I don't have children in school, so we'll possibly be paying for people's children to go to private schools. So have to keep that in mind, but I'd like to know
once
where my
people start
dollars-
realizing that their tax dollars are gonna go to pay for kids already in private schools getting a religious education, I think people might start thinking, is that what my tax dollars are for?
I think there's been confusion and not clarity around that, and you can see that when you start reading blog reports and so forth into these articles from people who line up on both sides of the fence.
Yeah. Just wanna mention a couple things,
Mike?
oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Go
no
ahead.
problem.
Okay.
I think the accountability portion is great. I know that you all have been really working hard for that for a long time. My only question is, you mentioned that the school report cards would still be effective, the 1 through 100. And I know that hurt the public schools a lot, especially our district. I know in our quarterly meeting, bias was one of the words used in a lot more harsher terms. So I'm wondering, I mean, if that was going out to all the private schools as well as it is the public schools, would expanding that really be the best option? Because, I mean, then it would be so much harder to go away with if that's what we want in the first place. Would the Democratic bill include that, or will it use some other grading
They,
scale?
as I understand their proposal, and it hasn't been drafted, these are just some thoughts from, and I don't know. First of all, the report cards aren't going away, so public schools are saddled with report cards. So, as imperfect as they are, but if we are gonna be judged in the report cards, why shouldn't the private and religious schools be judged by the same criteria? Why shouldn't they have a report card as well? Of course, one of the things they argue is, let's say a particular religious school has 25 voucher students. Their argument is that the report card should only cover those 25 kids and not the entire school. And my argument is, how can a parent judge the effectiveness of the entire school unless the entire school is covered by the report card and not just the 25 voucher kids? So I guess I would say that report cards aren't going away. If we're gonna be judged as unfair as they are, then everyone should be judged using a report card.
I think the other piece, though, that they are looking at, and if I heard Senator Olson speak to the fact that they were looking to improve the report cards and include a growth model. So if I'm a parent whose child attends a high-performing school, but school never grows, you know, is that the best school? Or do you choose a school where you can see growth? So I think that it was intended to be a work in progress. It was intended to be a flashlight to shine to move forward. So I'm hopeful that we really go to the intent and improve, that we end up with a value-added model. Because we know in Green Bay Area Public Schools stacks up in a value-added model in Brown County. We do extremely well because we do have success in advanced advanced placement courses and rigor in pushing kids forward.
It's interesting that you brought that up, because that's one more point, because the bill
did.
does allow, the
Sorry.
bill does allow a growth model,
Yeah,
but, and when I talked to Dan Rossmiller today, he forwarded me something, he said, "It is my understanding that the U.S. Department of Education will not allow or approve waivers that measure student growth based on value-added methodology." So.
and that's the
So the
Arnie
U.S. Department of
Duncan.
Education would, as it now stands, they will not approve that if there's value added. They just want a simple formula. They don't want
Oh,
value added.
And that's coming out of Washington.
Right.
There you go.
So that's another,
I'm sorry, what do you mean by value added?
value added, well, I'll let Michelle, she's,
It takes
I'll let
into
her-
account the percentage of students receiving free and reduced lunch, the percentage of students who are pushed forward, underserved populations, and its growth. It's a combination of growth. It's a combination of how many kids take the ACTs, its graduation rates, and it looks at how many kids are being exited out of ELL programs, a lot of things and factors, course offerings, concurrent credits, opportunities, and so it's looking at the whole system and how the kids are doing within the system as well. So it's far more, and different measures are included in that, but I can send you something that might
and it's
help
much
you.
fairer to kids, say, at high poverty schools. Some of those kids may grow more than kids at a school that doesn't have as much poverty.
Correct.
So they get, those schools and those students get credit for how much they grow academically, as opposed to, if,
A student who already has all the skills.
A student might grow 2 years, but still not meet proficiency on WKCE, so this gives the
That
school
gives
credit
them-
for that, advancing
For
the
that
student.
progress.
Yeah.
But you said no growth models based on value added,
That's what they're saying is they
but
won't.
not
They're-
just a
they're-
growth model.
They're saying the U.S. Department of Education will not accept a waiver with that included. They don't want a growth
That's why Arnie
But-
Duncan got it.
Okay, I'll ask you later.
model. Okay.
He did, he was rated.
I didn't
yeah.
catch.
Yeah, he
Quite
did
catch
C
the
minus
because
for
of
his
that.
performance in Chicago.
Well, there's a growth for the report cards. Luther Rosen has talked about improving the report cards by adding a growth model to the report cards. Is that your interpretation, Michelle?
That is my interpretation, and I'm very disappointed to hear that the Department of
Well,
Education
that's
doesn't
my question.
value that.
What's their rationale for?
So I think we need to drill down.
Yeah,
I want to
mean,
learn
from-
more
Yeah,
about
from
what that
what
means.
Dan has told me is that the U.S. Department of Education wants a more straightforward measurement.
But see, I guess what I don't understand is even if a student is not making proficiency, but has grown, so let's say 60% of the students at a given school grow 2 years in their reading with nothing else but that measure, how is that value added if we only measure that?
Correct.
So why couldn't we, why do you need the value added portion of it, and why can't you just measure growth? Right.
Well, I think we have to do both. In Minnesota, they do measure growth, but they also add some value-added pieces in there so that you can not only measure that piece moving forward, but also look at other variables within. I think it's very important to advance a school that you need to also look at participation in things. You may have overall reading, but again, that you're looking to drill it down. Are all kids succeeding? Is it, which kids grew 2 years?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And I
Right.
think that that's the piece that if you don't know, if you can't break it down farther, and I think we have to really look at what that means in terms of just growth, because just student growth may not tell the whole picture either.
Well, because, I totally get that portion of it, and why value is added there. Okay. I think I need more understanding.
That's just one more.
But it
Fly
tells
in
you
the
something
ointment here.
really important, is that it sounds like the feds and we need to drill it down. It sounds like the feds are saying, this is far too complex, just don't even go
Right.
there, because
Don't
we're
bother.
sitting in, we could spend hours here tonight discussing this.
Yeah.
And looking at the research.
Just tell me where you
behind
were in math last year and where you are this year, and don't add anything else to it, for every student.
it. Right, and that's not helpful, but I mean, I think we have to look at student growth.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
well,
that's-
isn't that what some of, what?
It's
what
closing the achievement
They were
gap.
talking,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
Steve and Mark and, Lisa were talking about.
Okay. Quickly mention a couple other things. I returned last night from the NSBA President's Retreat in Memphis, and I just wanted to share, there was a couple of days of very intensive leadership training that I found a lot of value in. Mention a couple things. We had one session where we kind of sat at round tables by region, and we were asked, all right, in your region, and the Midwest region is 9 states, in your region, what is the most critical issue that you're worried about, and what are you gonna do about it? We were on table, everyone mentioned the privatization of public education, the vouchers, and the fact that we need to become more aggressive in telling our story. And I think over the next several months, you're gonna see a lot more aggressive action out of NSBA. David Pickler, who's NSBA president this year, he said, we need to take the gloves off and go after AVIC.
Yeah.
And that's what they're gonna be doing. He said, you'll be seeing something more in the next couple of months. Another one of the things is that they're planning on doing is what he's saying, having conversations with companies and corporations that fund ALEC-related events, and talk to them about how much this hurts public education and why do you want to continue to do this. But they also, NSBA lawyers did write the brief that was taken to the Louisiana Supreme Court challenging the voucher system. They're doing a lot more legal advocacy as well. And then I think you'll see some of that coming out of WSB as well, a more proactive rather than reactive approach. And I think you'll hear John Ashley talk about that at the regional meetings this fall. So you'll see both NSBA and WSB become much more active in advocacy, and we've talked about the need to do that here as well. WSB regional meeting, October 1st at Comfort Suites. You can let Sandy know and she'll register you. Like I said, we're going to be having a lot of talk about advocacy, and for the first time, each of our regional directors has set up some local short presentations, and one of ours this month, Diane Dersch, will be doing a presentation to the group on trends in educational technology. So that'll be part of our meeting on October 1st. And I just mentioned one other thing, this is a ways off, but if you're interested, WSB's Legislative Advocacy Conference is November 8th in Stevens Point, and I think there's a lot of stuff on there. I've been asked to serve on a panel discussion on advocacy in local communities, but that's, I think that's, we should be getting more information on that as we get closer. I think WSB is putting that agenda together right now. What's that?
Is the 8th, or usually that's on a Saturday, isn't it?
That's November 8th, I think, is that a Saturday?
No, it's a Friday.
That's the 9th then.
Okay.
I guess my meeting starts
Your
Friday.
meeting starts at Friday,
I start
right?
on Friday, but yeah, it's the 9th in Stevens Point. And then finally, just the federal education legislation, there's nothing new. The Congress is in recess until September 9th. So unless anyone has any questions, that concludes my report.
Very good, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Next, we have our systems report. First one is teaching and learning, facilitated by Katie Miller.
Thank you, Brenda. We had an excellent discussion and review. Diane Dorsch told us how she spent her first 27 days with the district.
And she's still here.
And
Yeah,
she's
she
still
came
here.
back.
She's added
And
14 more
has,
days.
and has big plans for our technology department. It was a very exciting report, very much appreciated. And then for action items, I would move that the Head Start Program Guidelines and Operational Procedures Handbook and Policy Council bylaws be approved.
Second.
Any questions? Sandy?
Jeffries?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Franz? Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
That concludes our report.
Whew. It's under a minute. All right, next we'll move to organizational support. That'll be facilitated by Andrew Becker.
All right, we had no discussion items under business and finance. Under human resources, we had our staffing update. And for action items, I move that the additional 2013-14 contract for CISA 7 as presented be approved.
Second.
Any questions? Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Franz? Warren?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
I move that the table of organization be modified to reflect the change of a 1.0 Associate Director of Alternative Education 12 months, salary group 9, to a 1.0 Associate Director of Pupil Services 12 months with no change in salary, and that the associate job description as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Warren?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Franz?
Carried 7-0.
I move that the Associate Principal Elementary School job description as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Wagner?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Franz? Jeffries?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
I move that the position of 1.0 Director of Research and Program Evaluation 12 months be placed in salary group 6 rather than salary group 3 as approved in June 2013 be approved.
Second.
Any questions? Sandy?
Blackout?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Franz?
Carried 7-0.
I move the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Sandy?
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Franz? Jeffries?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Blackout?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Carried 7-0. That concludes your report, all right. And then, are there any other matters allowed by law? Right.
I just want to make sure that the board recognizes that I'm sure everyone would enjoy seeing them at any of the open houses that are going on. I know East starts tomorrow, and I'm not sure if Kristen sent that to them as well, the calendar.
Yeah, we got
With
that
all the open
last week,
houses.
all the open houses. Yep.
It's always exciting, and I know as a former building principal, I always loved when my board members would show up and just bop in and say hello and greet a teacher or two. It meant a lot to the staff too as well. So I'm hoping to get out and about myself and stick my nose in and say hey, but I just wanted to put that out there. And of course, always the first day of school is truly, truly a fun and exciting day, and it's, I just like to go see what people are wearing, but no.
Uniforms? No.
Hopefully it won't be 90 degrees.
And hopefully it won't be 90 degrees, I agree, so.
Are those listed on our website too, the open house dates?
I don't know,
Okay.
It should be.
I just, yeah,
They did
it's,
the individual stories.
we were over at the school store, and, I was with our legal counsel, Melissa and Theo Collar, and this young lady, fourth grader who is entering dance, proudly shared the outfit she was going to wear, and she also informed us how she was going to wear her hair. So it's a big deal that
Oh, yeah.
first day of school and getting all ready and shiny and new, so anyway, that's it.
All right, then we have closed session. I'll read that motion. Closed session has been scheduled for Monday, August 19th, 2013, immediately following the regular board meeting at the district office building, room 337, pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851E. Deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, more specifically to wit, negotiation of collective bargaining agreements pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851C. considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, to wit, employee compensation. And pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where paragraph B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations, to wit, personnel matters. The meeting will begin in open session to consider the appropriate motion for a closed session so provided by law.
So move.
Second.
Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
Blackham?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Wagner? Aye.
Carried 7-0, we'll move across the hall.
Make this move.
What's your tomorrow?
For more information or to obtain copies of this program, contact CISA 7 Interactive Learning Services at 920-465-5218.